at the moment anyway, for most people when they go and see a psychologist, it's often because they feel like something has gone wrong. So either they have noticed something doesn't feel right in the way they feel about themselves, or other people around them have told them, oh, maybe see a therapist, see a
Yeah.
psychologist, maybe something's going wrong. And what that tends to mean then is that people will come when they're in distress. And I would say if that's the way you're sort of looking at it, then it's important to be thinking, well, the things I'm experiencing, how long have they been around for? Have they been around for a very, very long time? Are they really, really distressing me? What impact are they having on my life? Are they affecting my functioning? So does it make it hard for me to kind of carry out my day-to-day stuff, like looking after myself, connecting with people? Am I isolating myself a lot? I think if you kind of tick lots of those different things, then it would be a good time to see a therapist or a psychologist. What I would also add is that I really hope that we get to a point, in our cultures, various cultures, where seeing a psychologist or a therapist doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. It just
Yeah.
means that maybe you really value having that space and having that time to talk to somebody. And it could even be about self development. It might be that things are going actually really well for you or well enough, and you just want to figure out how to sort of get to the next level. Or you just want to understand a bit more about yourself and how you work and how you operate in the different social circles you find yourself in. So I think ultimately there are different reasons why you could see a psychologist. I just think at the moment we are very much stuck on I go and see one when something is wrong. So
Right.
if that's the case, then the things I've mentioned would be the things to sort of keep an eye out for that would let you know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course. Also, as you mentioned, like in many cultures, seeing a psychologist is still a taboo, and people still think like there should be something very, very wrong to go and see a
Mm,
psychologist.
mm,
So, yeah,
exactly. And I think that's really linked to how we even view mental health problems at the moment. I think the way that we sort of talk about mental health problems is like, oh, well, something has gone horribly badly
yeah,
wrong. Like there's something wrong with you. There's something different about you. But a lot of the research into mental health problems just shows that actually it's that person's expression of the distress that they've been through. And, what might look like anxiety for me might come out looking like depression for you, or it might come
right.
out looking like, hearing voices or feeling a bit paranoid for somebody else. So it's just the way that we're showing our distress, which is based on the different things that have happened to us so far in life. Sometimes there's a biological component, but that doesn't fully explain everything. But what we tend to do is we tend to focus a lot on biology and say, oh, well, there's something flawed about me. And the
Yeah,
research just doesn't support that?
right. So that's about seeing a psychologist. Also, I was seeing questions like how to convince my parents to take me to therapy and stuff like that. If you
Mm,
can clarify something on that, maybe it will help
mm,
some people.
so I thought that that one was interesting just because, again, this is only general advice that I can give, and
Yeah.
without knowing everybody's like specific context, it's hard to give advice that will really hit the mark. So with that question, I guess what I would be thinking about is how old is the person, first of all? Just because I guess if you are a young person trying to convince your parents, then in my head, based on where I'm at in the world, I would be thinking, well, what are services doing? Because usually, even if your parents aren't willing to consider therapy, you yourself could access stuff through your GP. So where I am in the UK, if a young
Yeah.
person went to their GP, the GP would immediately be contacting child services or adolescent services, and then they would start making inquiries to the parents, etc. So that's one of those questions where if I don't know the specifics, I can't really give like
Yeah.
advice really because I don't know the parameters of the advice.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know that in different countries, therapy isn't
Yeah.
something you can access through something like a national health service. So that then brings like lots of different dynamics where you're having to convince somebody that you are unwell or that you need extra support versus, them noticing that and valuing therapy. It might be that in this person's situation, the parents are thinking, oh, this isn't about therapy. You just
Yeah.
need to do X, Y, and Z. So it's hard for me to give information, unfortunately.
Right. Also, healthcare
What did
systems
you
differ. Yeah.
exactly? What did you make of that question when you saw it? What did you think it might be about?
I thought maybe their parents are still not open about the idea that mental health matters and like
Mm,
kids need to see therapist. Maybe their parents are still like not convinced that there's something wrong with the
mm,
kid, or maybe there shouldn't be something horribly wrong with the kid to see a therapist. They can
mm,
still
mm,
see a therapist. So I think it's on the parents' end, maybe they are not still
Mm,
very open-minded or they're still not very
mm,
educated.
And like, I guess if those are sort of the factors, like, what advice would you give possibly? Like, maybe based on your own experiences or just, what you know about different structures in mental health, etc.
I will say just sit down and talk to your parents first.
Mm, mm,
Try to educate them, like tell them what you feel and
mm,
tell them everything what you know about mental health. Maybe they don't know actually, so they are just ignoring
mm,
you and they are keeping a closed
mm,
mind.
mm,
Maybe they just need to learn something.
mm. I think that's a good point that we are all at different places in terms of
Yeah,
our understanding about mental health problems and what it means and what causes them. And actually, for a lot of people, mental health problems aren't even what they would think about first. So I think you're right. There is something about having that conversation with parents and kind of saying, this is what's going on for me. And I think it's X, Y, and Z. Maybe
yeah,
your parents don't have access to the same information that you do. And also thinking about what leads up to mental health problems, it might be that the parents don't even understand really what has happened to this person that has led
right.
them to be the way they are at the moment. So, yeah, I think you're right. There's something about starting a dialogue at least, that would be
Yeah.
useful, or sounds like it would be useful.
Also, like, like how our parents are boomer generation and they don't believe on what we believe on. So,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that can be very tricky, kind of
yeah,
navigating that sort of, I don't know, like, is it a generational divide, I guess, but
yeah,
navigating
I
that,
think
that,
maybe.
that gap, that gap where you're like, oh, okay, we think different things about this. And yeah. And I think as well, it depends. It might be linked to culture. And by culture, I just mean broadly in that,
Yeah,
for some generations, maybe they've had to be very, very stoic and not talk about problems and just focus on what's happening out there in the world and their physical stuff. And maybe they didn't have the opportunities to stop and be like, actually, like, I don't feel good. Like, I feel down all the time, or I'm
right.
super anxious, or. So maybe there's something about that too.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm,
maybe. Yeah, there could be so many things that parents are not supportive, maybe.
mm,
Yeah.
mm.
So,